It doesn't matter if you're an amateur or a professional. We all like to see our pictures being used in newspapers, articles, catalogs, whatever, because that's where we do it for, to get some recognition. Now, before you can get a picture actually placed in a magazine or an article, it needs to meet certain criteria, and that's something we often forget as photographers. There's two main criteria that has to be met. The first one is that the picture has to be fit for purpose, and the picture has to be fit for use. Now, to be fit for use is quite easy, and I'm sure that all of us can make a proper picture with proper lighting, framing, sharpness, depth of field, the correct colors, correct framing, all of that. However, having a picture which is fit for purpose is a bit more difficult. When a customer wants to have a specific picture for an article or a catalog or whatever, they typically go to a art director or an editor who will then build up a storyline. He will come up with a concept, with a project, with an idea that has a certain mood and flavor and taste to it. They have something in their mind and on how they want to publish it. And that plan they are selling to the customer. And so the customer has certain expectations from that plan. Now, it's important as a photographer that you're involved very early in the project, because you will have to deal with that. You will have to interpret what the art director has put down on paper, and you have to make sure that your pictures are aligned with that whole concept. You have no freedom on an artistic level to do whatever you want to do. If the customer wanted to have a picture of a dog in a doghouse, then you shouldn't be shooting a dog in a jacuzzi. It may be more interesting and more nicer and more fun to do that. The picture may say more, but that's not what the customer is expecting, so you shouldn't be doing it. Anyhow, now that you have placed contact with your art director and the editor, you need to learn what the storyline is. What is this picture all about? Where does the picture go into? Where does it fit into? And the picture has to bring added value to the story, to the article. If it does not, then your picture will never be selected. Now, that's why it's important that you understand the storyline, read the storyline, understand where they're aiming at. And once you know that, that's a good start. Often they will work with text and logos, so it's very important to remember that. It's important to know for what kind of magazine they will use actually the picture. Is it going to be a vertical framed magazine or a horizontal commercial or catalog of different sizes and formats? So it's important because you will have to shoot accordingly. The other thing, of course, is that you have to work in the style and trend of their project and concept. Now remember, you will have to go out and scout locations, find a good background. But the backgrounds should never draw away the attention from the actual subject. So if you're shooting fashion with a model, then the background should not be more interesting than the dresses or the jackets or the shirts that the model is wearing, because that's where the focus is supposed to be. So when you go out and look for locations, pay very close attention to the background. It shouldn't be too busy either, the color should be right. For instance, if the art director decided that he wanted to have lots of pictures with logos and text on it, and the logo would be in the color red, well then it would not be very good if you go out on a location and scout the location and find a wall, a red brick wall. That wouldn't work, to make pictures there, because then the logo, the red logo, would disappear in the wall, the red color of the wall. So these are things you shouldn't be doing, you should be paying attention to. So when you scout the location, remember what the flavor is of the shoot, what the atmosphere is, what the mood board looks like, what the style is, and all of that you need to consider. Once you're on location, take a few shots. Visit the location several times. Early in the morning, at noon, late in the evening, whatever. So you have different light conditions, because light will also set a certain mood in your pictures. and it will bring or will not bring the picture better in line or not with the actual article where it's going to be used in. So once you've got the actual location identified, go and look around and ask if there is anything in that area that needs a permit. You're not allowed to shoot everywhere. Sometimes buildings have copyright because an architect owns the copyright of that building. So you need to check it. Get the permissions if you need to. Right, so then you go back to the art director and say, look, you got the location, you show them the location. So you said, okay, that's where we can shoot. And then you need to work out all the shoots you will do on a timeline together with the art director and the editor. You need to line up the models. Now, if we're talking models, and of course not every shoot is with a model, but if it's with a model, remember that a model is just a coat hanger. Now, they might not like to hear this, but that's reality. You are not going to focus on the eyes of the model. You will focus on the clothing she's wearing, because that's what the article or the catalog is trying to sell. They're not selling models, they are selling clothing. And the same is true for anything else. I mean, if it's about a bike or a car, it doesn't really matter. It's the subject which is important, not the surroundings. So pay attention to that. Now, once you've got the models lined up, don't hesitate to talk to your art director and tell him, listen, that is not a good model. You need to have the right expression on their face. And as a photographer, you know this. You know exactly what you want. And try to help the art director, because at the end of the day, it's all about communication with the art director and the editor. And finally, when you have it all set up, you should ask actually the art director and the editor, what is the layout of the pictures in the magazine? Is it a centerfold, or is it a full page? Is it horizontal, or is it vertical? Whatever. But you need to ask, especially ask where they want to have the text. Do you want to have the subject on the right? Do you want to have the subject on the left? Ask these questions, because those are determining factors for your framing once you do the shooting on the site. Now, once you get to the site on the shooting day, you should have been prepared to go to another location just in case it's raining. Unless you live in a tropical paradise where it never rains, well, then you have no risk. But I would always check the weather forecast, and I always make sure that I have a fallback location in case it would rain if the first location was outdoors. So that's something you always have to do, because nobody can afford it within its budget line to send everybody back home because it rains and you were not prepared to go to a second location. So that's very important. Now, once you start shooting, consider the depth of field, where the sharpness should be. Like I said before, if you're using models for dresses or jackets or whatever, you don't focus on the eyes. You focus on maybe a button on the blouse, or a sleeve on a skirt, or whatever. But that's where you need to focus on the subject, not actually on the surroundings. And a very limited DOF can work very well, but sometimes you might have a bit more. Make sure that your lighting is okay, because light sets the scene. Light is setting the mood of the picture. And if the pictures are more about drama, then you better make sure that you create the light which creates drama. If you're shooting pictures with guys on bikes, for instance, with rough beards, well, then don't use soft light. You have to use hard light. These are things you should know as a photographer, and I'm sure you do. But then again, you have to play into that. Now, don't be surprised if the art director is glancing over your shoulder and gives you directions. That's quite normal. Discuss it with him and try to bring added value to the whole effort. Don't get in a confrontation. I know that's going to happen eventually, but it's always good to communicate and explain why you think things are better this way instead of that way. And if you share the pictures with them during the shoot, they will all understand, and it will be a great cooperation. Now, while shooting and you have set out the scene, do your framing where the model is on the right and lots of space on the left. Do the same thing again, model on the left now, but space on the right. Do it both portrait to about horizontal, because art directors and editors tend to change their opinion on their magazines quite often. So now you have 4 pictures that allow you to move in any direction they want to go. Adding things afterwards in Photoshop is not always that easy, so why not having it? Now, shoot wide enough. That's another thing I can recommend. Shoot wide enough, but don't lose the detail of what you actually need to portray. But if you shoot wide enough, then you can always crop. Now remember, then cropping is losing pixels, so you better have a very good camera with at least 40 megapixels or more, and then you can afford some cropping factors of even a half crop would still do for a normal magazine. Now, of course, if you're making billboards, you need to remember that then you have to have a very good camera with lots of megapixels, and I would recommend at least 100 megapixels, and those cameras are on the market, and if necessary, go and hire one. Now, while we're talking about cameras, you better have always spare kit with you. I always take 2 cameras with me just in case one fails, and it has happened to me that one camera actually failed. So now you've done the shoot, everything is done. So now you go back to the office with the art director and the editor, and you're looking through the pictures. You pick out, you do a selection of the ones that are fitting best in the catalog or the article or the write-up, whatever, and then comes another job for you, meaning you have to deliver the pictures in time. You will have to do some editing to the pictures, some post-processing. And even in there, now you have the freedom to apply your artistic skills, how you're going to manipulate the picture. Maybe you want to dampen the colors or make it more bright or whatever, but always make sure that it's coordinated with the art director and the editor. Ask them what kind of style they want to have on the post-processing. How do they want the picture to look like? So that's in big lines what you have to do if you do editorial work. So if you do all these things and you cooperate closely with the art director and the editor, you understand for what article it is, you understand the storyline, you know what mood you have to set, the trend you have to work in, you have a good location scouted, then it will be a success and your picture will be fit for purpose and fit for use. Thank you.